Alright, shit, I fucked up again. Alright, we have it finally. So I've kind of alluded to this for a bit, but I wanted to do a Jitsi call. Fuck. I wanted to do a Jitsi call with my girlfriend who's got cerebral palsy. So if you can't tell by the way she's sitting there, that she needs a lot of accessibility options, and that's kind of what we're here to discuss today. So because she's mute, we do have to use she has to type in a terminal on a tablet. So you can see kind of the tablet interface down here, and we'll just we'll explain kind of some of the reasons why there's different stuff on there. So just as a test, if you want to, you can say hello, hello to the internet, and we'll try to get started. So I am not going to edit this. I mean, I don't edit anything I do, but I thought this one kind of had a justification because let me know. I might have to just put this in full screen for a while. So what was I saying? I was going to think about editing this, but I kind of want you to see how it's like to talk to somebody that's having to type everything. Uh, you know, it's just kind of interesting to see. So she has said hello, and we can get started. So I didn't really write down any questions, but we'll kind of we'll just kind of throw some out there. So first of all, why do you use a tablet? Because I know that we kind of came up with this fairly recently. Recently being like a year or two ago at this point. But I wanted to know like what makes a tablet better than uh, using a physical keyboard. Yeah. So as you can see when she's typing, she's got her hand curled up like this. Obviously, cerebral palsy means that she's got paralysis like all the way down almost. So because of that, using a physical keyboard, it's very hard to make these precise actions. So using a touch interface has been very helpful. And what the problem is right now is we have to use something called onboard, and onboard is kind of dead. It's not really well maintained anymore. But it does have a full keyboard layout, which is important if you're running a Linux environment, obviously, because you need to be able to use a terminal and everything. I'm going to full screen this 1 second just in case people can't see it. But don't expect super long form answers or anything. We don't have the time, really. I've only got so much drive space. But all right. So I guess we've explained that. Can you go over some of the choices in like interface here? Like what desktop environment are you using first of all? Yeah, KDE has been important because GNOME surprisingly, like you would think that they have sorry about that. You would think that they would have a better like touch interface, but I found GNOME is actually more keyboard centric, and it kind of comes down to KDE has a lot of extra features, and a lot of those features can be accessibility related. Stuff like split layout in the file manager, that's something we use a lot. There's There's actually a lot to go through. But GNOME, surprisingly, while it is very touch centric, it doesn't have a lot of options, which is options are good in this case. Yeah, window buttons are important. Yeah, so what we've been talking about with System 76, this, she didn't understand it at first, but these three buttons down here, these pink, teal, and blue ones, these are actually minimize, maximize, and close. And what's important about that is it's very hard to touch these precise buttons up here, if my cat would get out of the way. But it is a lot easier to manage these down in a panel, and since GNOME doesn't have much in a way of a panel, it's very hard to do things like disable the keyboard to close it out. It's hard to manipulate windows, and it's kind of a problem. So taskbar has become very important. um what other, since we're on the topic of GNOME actually, what other, what's another thing that GNOME kind of does poorly that you wish it had? Yeah, so on KDE, I'm gonna show it real quick on my screen. This category-based application launcher that most desktops use is also very important because it's hard, obviously, to navigate a list, using basically like a D menu up here. But also these icons down here, these are important too because without that, again, navigating a list is requires a lot of precise clicking. And the taskbar also, I think I'm talking about the application launcher, but the taskbar, being able to manipulate these icons right here is also requires less precise clicking, so that helps with the touch interface. GNOME, again, lacking this taskbar, doesn't have, or like panel or whatever, doesn't have this option. What GNOME does do though is it has this full screen application tray, which is okay, but it's not ideal. Are you talking about the like the panel on the right side where you have like Qubit torrent or OBS or whatever? Like yours would be this right side over here with KDE Connect and all that. Yeah. So GNOME has like extensions, but these extensions break after every release, and they're also not quite as usable as if they had like a dedicated option. So this lack of features has kind of left us in a rut, where we're not able to use GNOME for a lot of these accessibility cases. It's it's kind of that thing where it's like you want it to be as minimal as possible. Basically, you want it to just be the bare minimum to get going, but you have so many people with additional not only wants but also needs. And the argument they always make is, what's your use case? And it's like, well, I have an accessibility use case, but you don't care about that either. So it's kind of this half, double or sorry, two-faced sort of view on accessibility, where they want accessibility but not at the cost of adding features. And it's kind of a horrible mindset to have, honestly. um I'm going to ask real quick then, if we were writing a desktop from scratch, like again System 76 is doing right now, what would be like your top, well, you're obviously your most important thing right now? And it doesn't have to be something KDE has, but like if you had a dream of what you could use. Yeah, so on-screen keyboard is obviously the big one, because KDE has an on-screen keyboard called Malite, but Malite was mostly developed for KDE Mobile. So despite it being a framework and it's technically possible to make a full featured keyboard with it, it also just doesn't, which has been a problem. Onboard is currently like the best option, and it's brutal. So we're hoping that System 76 is making a keyboard with modifiers, which should kind of alleviate this issue. Hopefully, it'll be modular and you're able to install it on other desktop environments. That would be nice. So I hope it doesn't have a lot of Cosmic hooks in it. Yeah, do you want to show Malite real quick? I think I don't think it's installed on here right now yet. For some reason I had them add it back to um what's it called? Bazite, but they never added it. They'd rather use the Steam keyboard, and I don't know how to launch the Steam keyboard using their default key button because I've got an Xbox controller and it just doesn't work. Alright, so this is Malite, and as you can tell, Malite looks a lot like an Android keyboard. So it's missing, it's got like some modifiers, but it doesn't have like control or all. We really need like a port of Android's hacker keyboard or something for this use case. Yeah, how would you exit Vim? Actually, I think Vim you would use capital Z, or capital Z, capital Q to save without exiting. That's a pro tip. If you're ever trying to impress your friends, be like, oh yeah, I know how to exit Vim. It's ZQ or ZZ. Yeah. But yeah, as you can tell, that's obviously a mobile keyboard. So it's cool for Linux phones, but like if you need anything more advanced, our only real option right now is on board, and it's not great. So what's interesting about using a tablet for this use case is two-in-ones and Linux tablets are becoming more common, especially as like Microsoft Surface comes out and stuff and ARM becomes more popular. These are chips more suitable for tablets, right? I mean, obviously you could put them in a desktop, but for tablets, these are wonderful. And as ARM gets better developed, we do have a growing need for Linux on the tablet, you know. So all this accessibility stuff that we're asking for, this would all benefit everybody that is on a tablet. Like even I own a two-in-one because I picked one up at a pawn shop, you know. And I'm stuck on Linux Mint right now because I wanted Cinnamon's OSK, you know. And so that's been I want to try Pop OS again, but I need that on-screen keyboard, and I don't want to use onboard. I don't want to use Malite. I could because again, I don't have these accessibility needs, so I could easily use Malite as a like general input keyboard for text fields or whatever, but it wouldn't be good for operating without a keyboard. So that's kind of the problem. But basically, like the stuff I'm asking for is, while yes, some of it is accessibility related, part of it is just we need a good tablet interface, and GNOME isn't it, you know? Um, what else should I ask? How long have we been going? I don't want to like kill my drive. All right, we are at 20 minutes. If you want to write a write something, if you wanna keep talking about whatever. I don't really have I didn't have like a whole plethora of questions. Oh yeah, I forgot to specify. So we are talking about Wayland right now because Wayland is poised to become the de facto like standard for desktop environments, window managers, whatever. Your display protocol will eventually be Wayland for the most part. And that's where the problem is because X11 had different ways of handling stuff like on-screen keyboards. And this is actually a problem that System 76 brought up to me is their screen magnifier doesn't work right now because they have to basically counter everything that Wayland tries to do privacy and security wise. They have to do that to get the screen reader to work because it has to take full system control. And that's obviously an issue, you know. So on-screen keyboards kind of got the same problem. They're not able to take over input of the whole system on different windows. They're not able to resize windows because they just don't have access to it. So a lot of this stuff is going to have to be written explicitly with the purpose of countering Wayland, and that's a huge issue. So since onboard's kind of dead, they aren't able to do this work for us. X Wayland, of course, is a huge problem. Onboard doesn't open. Oh fuck. Uh, yeah, I gotta get a new camera. My camera's not working. But but anyways, like Wayland has been like the major hurdle that we're going through right now, and in this transitionary period, KDE has managed to do some fantastic work, and we're hoping that that can be learned from. But Gnomes is not really on our list right now because they don't care, you know. Or I guess I shouldn't say they don't care, but they actively refuse to help us, and that's a major issue. And it's not just, I mean, like this isn't just a problem for people with cerebral palsy. It's a problem for everybody when we're dealing, not everybody, but it's a problem for multiple, different disabilities. You know, is we're gonna have these problems as Wayland is kind of growing up. Is right now it doesn't assume, or rather it doesn't work super well for accessibility right now, and that's what we're hoping to change. um Thanks for reminding me. That would have been something I wanted to bring up because X11, I mean, yeah, I can use the OSK on Cinnamon right now because Cinnamon's an X11 desktop, you know. But we need Wayland for some stuff like display scaling because somebody else that has cerebral palsy actually has problems with its vision too. And obviously, tablets can be high DPI, which means you do need to have some level of display scaling, and some applications just don't respect it right now. So that is another growing pain that we're having is Wayland's supposed to fix the display scaling, but it doesn't work super well on NVIDIA right now, which has been a problem. In this we also need it for Waydroid because Android, luckily, has actually gotten a lot of vendor support for their accessibility options, which obviously being backed by a company like Google, you're going to get a lot better output like that. So I wanted to ask you, and this is reminding myself actually, is so you used to use an Android tablet. If somebody wasn't looking to run a Linux tablet, what would be kind of the software they need for an Android tablet? So I know that because you ran Termux, there was some software that you would use for running an Android tablet accessibility wise. That's actually what I was expecting. So, yeah, because Android actually is very accessible kind of out of the box, you know? So if you're not looking to deal with all the hassles of Linux, there are options in the Android space to get a probably much cheaper tablet, but also one that may work better with your use case, provided you're willing. If you need Linux for anything, you could use like Termux, and there's options for that, like a hacker keyboard. Yeah, I remember. Uh, so yeah, you do have the option to have Android as your, if you do decide that you need Linux for this kind of thing, you don't necessarily have to run a full Linux tablet. You do have an option with Android, which is nice. And then you get obviously the vendor support that Android comes with, but we do use Waydroid on Wayland, which is another important thing. Yeah, there's so many different applications, you know. Because you do want the vendor support of Android. You do want to be able to run Android programs, especially again with accessibility. You want to have access to that repository because you get more touch centric applications. Yeah, that would be a really nice feature because Android's got much better Android's got much better on-screen keyboards for this kind of thing, which is ironic because it's, it's a phone or it's a tablet. It's not really. It's bad. Yeah. So you still do need a you do still need you do still need a good Linux on-screen keyboard, and that's one reason why you may opt out of a Linux tablet. I wanted to say too that so she runs the Starlight tablet, and it has had a lot of growing pains. Like it's kind of buggy. The hardware, despite being pretty much Libra, does have a few issues, with like freezing and some general bugginess on different distros. So I don't know if I would recommend a Linux tablet right now. I don't know of any other brands that are better, but they are working on it to make it better. I would say though that, like I said before, the benefit of making a touch centric UI is that it'll help for all these people that own other tablets that can run Linux. So like your basic Dell laptop that's a two-in-one can run Linux, and having all these options are going to help people that use a two-in-one, you know. So I would say right now, I mean, just get a get a normal two-in-one rather than shelling out for a Linux tablet that might be under spec, and because this one's got like a Chromebook CPU, it's got like an Intel N2000, but it does have like DDR4, 16 gigs of RAM. It's pretty decent. I'm not saying like it performs better or anything, but you can get like a full i5 and some of these two-in-ones if you get like the heavier ones. Oh, remind me, I need to ask you about your controller. I don't want to forget that. Yeah, that's your specs right there. So yeah, it does have a Intel N200, which isn't like a bad CPU or anything, but you generally find those in like netbooks, except maybe not a dual core, I believe that is. Maybe a dual core. It does have 16 gigs of RAM, and it does have a 2880 by 1920 display, which isn't bad or anything, especially for the size. Um, I think you can get one for like $600 right now. It may be on a long pre-order though, so be aware of that. We did have to wait about a year for it to come in. It was so brutal. But yeah, I want to ask you about your controller too. So what you use is, I'm going to bring it up right here. A make sure my recording's still going good. Okay, we're good. So this is the Xbox Adaptive Controller. And what this is it's a controller for people with cerebral palsy. Obviously, it doesn't have like a standard layout, it would, and it does have additional attachments that you can either make yourself, buy third party, or buy first party. Try to find one without joystick drift, though, that's important. But I wanted to ask you a bit about why you use this controller, what you're doing with it, if you could hear me that whole time. Yes. So if you are, I mean, like, obviously, touch isn't the only way you can interact with your computer because you obviously need to have a physical keyboard available for, like, debugging, you know? Like, if you had to enter a TTY or something. So, this controller can also be used as a mouse, which is important for what would you use? What would you use it as a mouse for? I know. I said a sentence and I was like, oh, this would actually make a better question. Yeah. So she has it hooked up to her PC, and obviously the PC running Windows right now, right? All right. Yeah, so the PC being not having a touch screen too, you do need to have some sort of some sort of mouse input device for some things, you know. So it is important to have some sort of device you can use when you don't have the ability to use a mouse correctly. Um, so we are at about we are at about 40 minutes, 42 minutes actually. I think if we need to, we can do a follow up. Obviously, comments down below or whatever. If you want to ask anything, I'll try to either make a video on it or do another something like this, you know. But I think I've expended everything I wanted to talk about, honestly. So, it's been great. This is my girlfriend Mariah. Uh, I'm gonna post this real quick. We're still alive. So I actually just put it all in tile mode, so they've been able to see you this whole time. Alright, so at this point I will end it. Yeah, obviously let me know, let me know how this is if you like this kind of thing. Because I don't know, this is my first time doing something like that. But I'll end it here. Say bye to everybody, Mariah. Yeah, there you go. Alright, I will see you guys later. Thanks.